Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel. And if you've spent any time here at all, you will know that I am on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business through this channel. So the only way that I know for you to be successful in your business is by being a better, more effective with your sales and marketing. So not only on this channel am I giving you everything I know about sales and marketing, I'm also dragging in anyone who could bear to speak to me to extract all of the information they're holding on sales and marketing also. So today's guest has been in sales since 1987. He might object to me telling you that that is 35 years. He has been he has been running his own businesses essentially for the whole of this century. He is one of only 200 people who continued to watch football and rugby matches in stadiums throughout the pandemic and throughout the lockdowns. And that is because he is also a professional sports photographer. He is currently director of venture consultants and managing director of what has been his core business since 2009. Today's guest is Simon West. Good morning, Simon.
Good morning, Martin.
How are you doing? Are you well?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a beautiful day here in the UK, so I'm very happy.
Excellent. It looks, I can see you basking in the sunshine there. In fact, you've had to close the curtains.
Yeah,
And
sorry,
you're
it's a
not
bit dry.
worrying too much about your heating bill today.
No, no, the gas is a bad topic over here.
It really is. Everybody's really interested to talk about how much their heating is costing them. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about the fact that
No,
you were one of only 200 people allowed into football and rugby stadiums during the lockdowns. Um, that is a
yeah,
unique experience that you couldn't have imagined would ever have happened.
very unusual. I mean, putting aside all the jokes about small crowds in for different football teams and so on, if you take the the number of players, the coaches, the support staff, and the BT, the Sky video teams, and you throw in 10 sports photographers, that needed to be less than 200 people through the whole of lockdown. So there were 10 of us allowed into, as sports photographers, there were 10 of us allowed into each stadia. And I was lucky enough to be shooting 2 or 3 times a week throughout that. Uh, a lot of football, rugby when it came back, and yeah, it was just the most weird experience to have near zero noise in a really large, 60, 80,000 seater stadium, and it's just empty. I mean, they dressed it up nicely. They put big placards, big signs across all of the seats. They even had virtual crowds, so they'd actually take photos of the fans, put them on a head on a stick, and put them on the seats, and these sorts of things. And we got some great photos actually shooting through this virtual sea of fans and these sorts of things. But
Cool.
no, it was just silent, absolutely silent. And you hear what the players are saying, you hear what the ref is saying to the players, and that's an interesting thing.
Yes.
And the only noise is the coaches shouting from the sideline. It takes you back to an under 11s football match on a Sunday morning, and take that and translate it into a sports stadium, and that's what it was like.
Wow. And this is Premier League game, so this is top tier
Mm.
football.
This
Okay.
is Premier League. This is Premiership football. Sorry, Premiership rugby. Um, there was some Championship being played as well, but all the other local leagues, all the other level one, level two, and other leagues were all just cancelled. So this was the only game in town.
Okay. So how do you
Yeah.
get to be a Premier League football photographer? Because I'm sure there are lots of people who would like to be that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very fortunate. So if you ever look at a TV shot um, of the pitch, you'll see on next to the corner posts, there's 4 or 5 guys clustered there with a big long lens that's a big long lens that looks something, I don't know if you can see that, like that.
So what is
Um,
that? That's like 1200 mil?
no, it's only a 400 mil.
Oh my God.
It's only a 400 mil, but it's a 400 mil 2.8.
Right. So it's
So this
fast.
thing. Sorry, we're going way off topic, but
No, but I'm really interested in this. You know I am.
this, if you look down the front end of this thing, if I can get it down the camera, is utterly enormous. So you look at the front end of that.
Yes.
That's what I'm shooting with there.
Okay.
So there's one of those, and then there's another smaller camera that I use for the shorter for the close-up stuff. So how do you get to be a Premier League photographer? Well, number one, you actually need about a hell of a lot of kit. Call
Right.
it 20, 30,000 pounds worth of photo kit. And that either gets provided by an agency if you're lucky, or you buy it and earn your way into it. So I earn my way into it, making money from selling photos.
Okay.
So first you've got to be good at taking photos, then you've got to get an agency contract, and then that agency will get you into the matches. Or you can do it on your own back, but that's actually a harder route.
And is it where afterwards you have to get your photos out the fastest to get to secure the? I've seen that. Like, so is it at the end or is it during the game you're actually firing these photos out?
No, it's during the game. So there's two different approaches. If you're shooting for one of the very large agencies, a Getty, an AP, one of those, they'll often have what's called an off-site editor.
Okay.
So in that situation, your camera is either wirelessly or wired straight into the internet. You record a voice note against a photo, so you talk into it, and it says, I know, red 12 tackled, blue 5, or whatever it happens to be, or you put the names against it. You record that against the photo, you hit one button, and that sends it to the offsite editor. And the offsite editor they'll crop the photo, they'll adjust it as necessary, and put it on the wire. So they'll put it on the internet so that the papers and so on can get that. So within 30 seconds of you taking a photo, you've uploaded it and it's gone, and you're on to the next one. So
Wow.
that's the big agencies.
Yes.
The smaller agencies, so myself and the other probably 15 guys now there, I've got a laptop by the side of my my stool, and I will take the card out of the camera, having identified the photos I want, put them onto the laptop, and while the match is still carrying on, let's say there was a goal in football, I'll mark all the photos, I'll lock all the photos on the camera I want, and then transfer those straight onto the laptop. And whilst the match is carrying on, I'm then captioning and uploading straight from my laptop over
Right.
to my agency, who then push it onto the wire.
So there's quite a bit going on then.
This is a full brain activity. So I'm looking at what's going on. I'm trying to judge. Generally, you'll only shoot stuff in your own half. So beyond the halfway line, you don't get much that's useful.
Yeah.
So if there's just been a goal, unless there's going to be another goal, I'll be focusing on the laptop and getting those images out quickly, because obviously, the Guardian, Telegraph, and so on, well, they want the image then to be able to put their latest story up to say, goal at, Chelsea, Crystal Palace,
Yes.
and here's the image, or whatever it happens to be. So I'm focusing on getting that out, but I'm also keeping an eye on the pitch, because there's a lot of situations where a second goal happens very soon after the first goal. And the
Yes.
last thing you want to do is to miss the second goal because you're focusing on the first goal. So you're focusing on your laptop, you're focusing on the match that's going on, and you're also trying to remember who the players were who were just part of the action in the previous one, whilst also looking at a different set of players in the current action.
Wow.
So it's a strange feeling after a match, but it feels like I've had a brain cleanse,
Okay.
because
Because you haven't thought about anything else for 90 minutes.
you cannot think about anything else the whole time. You are so focused on what you're doing. There isn't space in your brain for anything else at all. And I find it's cathartic. You cannot be worrying about, oh, did I send that customer that invoice, because you've missed something.
Yeah.
I know we were talking previously, thousandth of a second. Yes, I shoot at 1600th of a second because that's about the speed you need to stop a football in the air.
Okay.
Um, and so shooting at that speed, if you are late by a fraction of a second, you've missed the action. You've
But
got to
you
be
are
on it.
shooting like 9 frames a second, no?
Yeah, 12.
12. Okay. Good.
The new camera shoots 30, but 30
Yes.
frames a second? Or the latest one announced 120 frames a second at low res.
So you just ship all of, and these are raw, so they're going to be 50 megabytes?
45, yeah.
45. Okay. Okay, good. I feel like we've spoken too much about,
Yeah,
not enough
sorry.
for me or for you, but maybe
Yeah, we'll
too much for this instance.
for
But
everybody else. Yes.
I'm getting a sense of the technical nature of you, um, which is interesting. Okay, so the format of what's going to go on here, as you know, there's only 5 questions. First question is how you qualified to talk to us about marketing. Second question is, who do you work with? Not exactly who do you work with, but what's the style of businesses that you work with? How do you add value to their lives? The third question is, what is your recommendation for anyone who wants to get better at sales and marketing? Fourth question is, what should people read? Fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus to have one of these conversations with me? But before we do that, I want to address the email that you sent to me yesterday that
Oh, yeah.
said, I don't know what Warren recommended that we speak. He threw you under the bus. Um, my interest, I don't know what Warren said about you. My marketing interest is more around systems and improvement than the fluffy side of things. So I think
Yes.
before we find out how you are qualified to talk to us about marketing, I'm interested to know what is the fluffy side of marketing and why aren't you interested in it?
In my mind, there's stuff that supports people to be able to do their jobs well. And for me, that's the structural side of marketing, sales and marketing. And you've then got a lot of other processes, other systems, creatives that sit on top of those people. So it might be a TV advertising campaign, it might be a Facebook campaign, it might be some nice graphics. The design side, strangely for a photographer, the design side of marketing is absolutely not my bag. I don't get involved in that area at all. It's not something I'm qualified on, and I do tend to be slightly disparaging about it probably because I don't understand it very well.
Okay,
So that's what I mean.
yes. Is it necessary?
In some markets.
Okay. Because my experience is I was in sales for 10 years before I started my marketing company. And my reasoning was essentially I'd been in the sales team for 10 years, watching the
Hmm.
marketing people lord it up with all of the budget and none of the target, whilst we in the sales team had all of the target and none of the budget. So my rationale was if I'm going to do this, then I want to be where the budget is. Um, but up until that point, I'd never sold anything that had been marketed. Very rarely in those 10 years. I mean, I remember in my first job, we were selling advertising in magazines. If the phone were to ring and you weren't on the phone, it was like a mad dash to get that phone call because that might happen once a year, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, absolutely.
that was a sale going to happen. So I would have also been very disparaging of the designy, creative side of marketing, and I would have said your business doesn't because I would have gone out and sold it without the brand and without the messaging and without the thing. And basically, I would have come up with some value proposition and I would have delivered that to exactly the person that I thought needed to hear it. So I would have also been disparaging at that point. But in the time since I've run my marketing company, I've come to be much more respectful of marketing and maybe the more creative side of marketing and the idea of brand, I suppose, which I think is really interesting. Um, but you're disparaging just because. Okay, so let's go. You think it's necessary in some markets. Which markets is it necessary in?
I think it's very necessary in markets, in consumer markets, where there's a lot of discretionary spend and many different competitors seeking to differentiate similar or identical products.
Okay.
So, in those situations, brand presentation differentiation is vitally important. If you are the only person with a new idea, and whatever that idea happens to be, then your challenge isn't to differentiate yourself through marketing. Your challenge is to create an awareness that you exist so that people can buy from you. So in a conventional brand world, social influencers, which I am very disparaging of to some degree, social influencers are important. Branding is absolutely vital. The presentation, the TV adverts, and so on. Yes, they're absolutely necessary because you're essentially taking identical products and seeking to explain why yours is better. Washing powder. Washing powder is
Okay.
washing powder is washing powder, but it's the presentation of it that allows one to succeed over another, not the technical content of that powder. Whereas a lot of the markets I work in, it tends to be the actual function, form, and capability of the products that is the key differentiator, not the fact that somebody will feel better for having bought one over another because of a marketing campaign.
Okay. Good. And there are, so for example, if you are selling to female markets, then we know that females are much more appreciative of brand and how nice something looks rather than males. And then I suppose there's spectrums within that where you end up selling very technical things where the brand is much less important. Um, Okay, good. All right, good. So let's go to question number one, having satisfied that. Now,
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember exactly what Warren said to me about you. I think he said that
nothing
you,
positive, I would imagine.
sorry?
Nothing positive. Yes.
Oh, it was positive. He was trying to get me to speak to you.
Yeah.
It was positive. He said that you're expert in the delivery, like guaranteeing the delivery of messages and the conversion of those messages is what he said.
Mm,
Because actually,
yeah.
Warren recommended like that I speak to 10 people, and you were the only person that he actually gave me more information about, like this guy does this particular thing. Is that true? Are you busy with the guaranteed delivery of messages? Because what I took that to mean is like the more likely delivery of an email message, for example. I don't know if I've got that right.
Yeah. That would make a lot of sense given the way that I've done stuff with Warren and what he's heard from me. So yes, that is one element.
Okay.
Um, that's one element of what we do. So if you if you take email deliverability as a topic, for example, then yes, that's something that we have um, a big a big amount of work that we do on, and I have strong opinions on what achieves that email deliverability. However, it is only opinions because there are no hard and fast rules as to what a spam filter or a bot or whatever is going to kick out of somebody's inbox. It's an art as much as a science, as you'll know.
Yes.
But yeah, we've done a lot around that in the past. We've moved away from it more recently, simply because email for me now is more of a channel to maintain relationships with customers than it is to necessarily acquire new customers. The whole spam growth and situation has stopped a lot of companies succeeding where previously they had succeeded at acquiring new clients by email.
Okay. All right, good. I feel like we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit because
Sorry,
you're talking to us about marketing. We've got no idea if you're qualified to talk to us about
am I
marketing or
qualified?
not. So that's question number one. How are you qualified to talk to us about marketing? I mean, it has been 35 years.
I
So
was
I'm
going to say, you kind of reminded me it was 35 years. I spent a lot of time in sales, a lot of
okay.
time in sales, running sales teams, started out at literally, I started out in a graduate job. I was given the yellow pages, and it wasn't even a virtual yellow page. I was given the yellow pages, and I worked my way through it for a particular area around Guildford, and I got my first bite at Municipal Mutual Insurance. I can still remember it in 1980 something. And I actually got through to somebody quite senior in there. And that was my first break in sales. So why am I qualified? I'm not really that qualified in pure marketing. I'm very qualified in understanding how people buy and therefore how to sell to them in a range of situations that I've experienced over 35 years. So a lot of what we do is around the systems that support people to sell effectively. So my experience of doing the hard graft of getting on the phone, and then later on of doing account management, and then later on running sales teams, and then building systems for sales teams, and then building systems that support marketing and sales, and then running an email marketing company, which is what the current company started out as in 2009. That is what qualifies me to have an opinion on marketing. Whether I'm any good at it is another matter entirely, but I've got a lot of opinions that say I know what I'm talking about.
Okay, and you've been doing it for 35 years, so I'm sure if you weren't good
Yeah.
at it, you might have found yourself doing something else.
Well, to put it in another way, people still pay me to do it, and they have done so, and some of the same customers have done so for 7 or 8 years. And given that I measure the results of what they're achieving, and the results are going down well, and are growing year on year, then yeah, I'm generating good financial results for clients as well. So I guess that qualifies me to say, yeah, it's going okay.
Okay, good. All right, so should we listen to you for the next hour or not?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, good. Right, so measurement. This is something when I was looking at your LinkedIn profile that comes through very strongly, and this is what um, I think this is the opposite to the fluffy stuff, like is
Yeah.
the actual measurement. So for me, like you can actually measure elements of brand, and for me, brand is brand is beyond the design. Brand is about brands actually have value, and brands actually have utility in terms of being the relationship that you have with your customers. Maybe if you were to talk to Barnaby Winter, then he would say that. So that is measurable. So this is where it all becomes much less fluffy, I think. So
I agree.
so systems and improvement. So what does that mean? What kind of sales systems are you there? What
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
sales systems are you implementing for people? What do those sales systems look like?
Okay, we fell into sales systems because when we were running a lot of email marketing back 2010, 2012 time when it was really effective, what we wanted was a way of being able to log all of the um, all of the interactions over a long period of time. So it's all very well seeing the results of the last campaign. But what I wanted to do was to know if we'd emailed somebody 20 times over the course of a year, how many of those emails had they interacted with? How many of them had they clicked on a link on? How many had they opened? How many had they not opened? And all that sort of stuff. And then make judgment calls about the sort of links they clicked on and hadn't clicked on so that we could then target those people far more tightly on a particular area of interest. So if they'd only clicked on emails in a particular topic area, then we go and create a channel that talks to people in that topic area, and we put all of the people who engaged on that topic into it and talk to them and get more engagement from it. So it's about using the data that's available to you. So it's very, very difficult to do that on spreadsheets. I tried. I can tell you it doesn't work. You get death by spreadsheets. So you need a system. So we started looking for systems that would integrate with our email marketing system. And bear in mind, this is before it was really easy just to plug one in. And we eventually found that Microsoft Dynamics was quite a good way of doing that. And so we started to develop our own Microsoft Dynamics CRM solution. So we'd take all the data into that. We would send all the emails out through an email marketing platform and pull all the data back into it. So what we then get is one contact record with all the interactions that that person has had over the course of 2-3 years. And also, and this is where it gets really interesting, if you then put the telesales people who follow up on those contacts and the account managers who deal with those people into that same CRM system, then not only do you get the marketing interaction, but you also get the sales interaction. And if you then add into it what happened at the end of it, did those customers buy? How much did they buy? What else have they gone on to buy? Then you've got a way of knowing what results your email campaign generated. Not just in, yes, we generated 17 leads, but we generated £35,000 worth of revenue from that campaign. So for me, the reason that sales systems are important is because it enables a feedback loop from that first moment of connection all the way through to the point at which somebody buys and carries on buying. So you can actually genuinely not guess but calculate the lifetime value of customers by by lead source, by all of the different sorts of metrics that you would want to measure them as a marketer. And it gives you a way as a marketer of being able to make intelligent, fact-based decisions rather than emotion-based decisions on new marketing campaigns. Because if marketing campaign A has produced 3% click-through, that sounds good. Marketing campaign B has produced 1% click-through, well, that's pretty crap. Yeah, but marketing campaign A might have just those click-throughs, but when the telesales guys got on the phone and called all those people who clicked, because that's another strategy, they got zero response. But of the 1% in campaign B, they called those people and they got 7 decent customers out of that. Well, on the face of it, if you'd just taken the higher level value, the click-through rate, you'd have carried on working on the higher click-through rate. But by actually looking at the sales results and mapping that onto this in a system properly, then you can say, well, actually, no, that campaign A is a complete waste of time. That's just wasting the telesales guy's time. Let's run more of campaign B. Let's get a lower level of engagement, but we're actually finding the right people who will turn into customers. And that's, for me, the aim of marketing is, to put people into one of those big sifting things. People talk about funnels. I hate the idea of funnels because it just feels so 1990s. But you put people into the top of a process and you progressively sort them through that process. They fall out as customers. But what I'm looking for is I then want to take those customers and then say, so what attributes have you got that the people at the top of the funnel have also got? Because what I can then do is I can then short circuit the whole process of qualification and to something called lookalikes. And I'm having a conversation with a friend at the moment who's into AI systems about how you can use your customer base to identify lookalikes in your customer base at the top level of your marketing funnel. So then instead of you then needing to go and buy another 10,000 names to chuck in the top of the marketing funnel, you go and buy the 200 names you really need. And each and every one of them can get a far greater attention through that marketing funnel because they're your ideal customers. But that only really works in a market where you're interacting with your customers rather than a brand advertising type thing. So more of a B2B than a B2C world, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Okay, so this sounds like the kind of automated segmentation and or triggered message delivery of something like Infusionsoft, with the sales interaction of something like HubSpot, with the lookalike audiences like something like Facebook or YouTube.
Mm.
I mean, but more than that, it sounds like marketing rather than sales. So maybe we need to make this distinction here. Why is this a sales system rather than a marketing system? I'm interested to know that.
It's both.
It's
It,
both.
it,
Okay,
it,
good.
start, it started as a sales system. So it started with taking the output from marketing. Let's take email marketing because it's simple.
Yep.
So it took the output of an email marketing campaign, and it said, of the 20,000 people we emailed, 2,000 people opened and 200 people clicked on one of the links in the email. Now, we could be very procedural on that and say, right, telesales, call those 200 people and let's see what happens. And that's why it started as a sales system, because those were not telemarketers, those were telesales. And the system was set up. So the input was the 200 people to call. And the output was the results of that telesales outreach, which was sales, not sales, engagement, and so on. So that's why it was originally a sales system, but it's not. It's a sales and marketing system. And I wrote an article years ago called Mind the Gap, talking about this chasm between sales and marketing, where marketing tend to generate a marketing qualified lead, and sales want a sales qualified lead, and there's a gap between them, where marketing say this person's interested, and salespeople say they don't want to buy from us, and there is a gap there. And I spent a lot of time in the early years of the business trying to cross that gap. So provide the systems that allowed marketing to move more towards a sales qualified lead, and sales more towards understanding that marketing's output was a marketing qualified lead. But if we then put the system in the middle, then we could take a marketing qualified lead, we could warm them up to the point that some of them become sales qualified leads who are then ready for a sales conversation.
Good. Love this. Good. Because there's something else that goes on where like sales and marketing is always pitched against each other. It should be like a virtuous cycle where marketing develop the interest, sales pick up the interest, have the one-to-one interaction, feedback into. There should be that loop, but it doesn't exist because sales and marketing don't talk to each other. There's something also about sales never appreciating the value of what you call a marketing qualified lead,
Yes.
and marketing always thinking that sales are just lazy and stupid and not doing the work properly. So there is this gap. I've always been interested in this. This is what I was talking about before when I was saying nothing I ever did was marketed. There were always marketing people, but nothing they gave us was ever of any use. So that's why we had to go and do our own. And of course, then by the time you've got salespeople doing marketing, they haven't got budgets to do marketing. They get to do canvassing. They get to knock on doors or cold call people or whatever it is. So when you make the distinction between telesales and telemarketing, I know where I draw that line. Like, so for it's telesales if those prospects have expressed a solid interest and there is a
Yeah.
good likelihood of that being converted into a sale. In every other instance, it's telemarketing. If you're calling somebody, you've got no idea if they have any interest in the product or service or actually buying the product or service. That for me is telemarketing.
Yeah, I don't think telemarketing exists as a thing anymore, because it's such a wasteful thing to do, to phone somebody up and ask if they're interested.
I got
The
telemarketed the other day.
Did you really?
I really did, yeah. And you know who it
Blimey.
was? It was Action Coaching.
Oh,
And
well, there
yeah.
we go.
Do you know what he said to me? He said to me, this was the actual question. Hello there, my name's blah blah from Action Coaching, and I just want to know, have you found that you're not spending enough time with your family recently during the pandemic? I'm like, I mean, it's the worst telemarketing I've ever experienced in my life. It's like that's a closed question apart from anything else. No, I haven't found that. Thank you very much. Bye. but also
from
like
from a
really
coach.
personal from action coaching. Yeah, and there's
No,
no
no,
the
coach asks open questions.
coaches ask open questions. Yeah, but these poor guys that they get in to do their telemarketing, and it
Yeah.
is telemarketing because I haven't expressed an interest in action coaching since I saw Brad Sugars in 2008, and I put on the form. I'm really excited to hear from you. Get in touch with me, and didn't hear anything until 2022.
Well, there you
So
go. You expressed an interest.
So that's it was it was a telesales call in 2008. In
Yeah.
2022, it's like a joke. It's ridiculous.
Somebody found that piece of paper in the bin.
Yes. Um, okay, good. So we're on the same page. This gap,
Yeah.
because what is the point of marketing if they're not delivering qualified leads? Whether they're like if the let's just say if they're not converting, then what's the point? No, I mean
Oh,
there is a point. Obviously, they're doing lots of other things. They're doing the branding, they're doing the product selection, they're doing the targeting, they're doing the product development. They're doing the pricing. They might be doing lots of things, but why would they bother doing promotion at all unless the outcome was actually leads that convert, however they're qualified?
uh, to answer your question very simply, because they've got the budget to do so.
Right.
But that's probably an answer from 15 years ago. I think the world has shifted significantly. We all know the world has shifted significantly. When we were doing our sales training way back when, we were always told you need 6 or 8 points of interaction with somebody before they'll even consider you. I read another blog, No Trust Buy, as in without trust, you won't get a purchase, or if there isn't any trust, then goodbye. And that was based on this idea that you've got to build a relationship with somebody. You've got to have caught their attention 6 to 8 times before they'll even consider having a sensible conversation with you. I would argue probably in today's world, because those touches, those interactions can be far more fleeting. A view on Instagram, a tweet, a tweet that's been engaged with, and so on. It's probably up to 20 or so now. So you've got to have, in the first stage of the marketing process, you've got to engage your customers' brains so that they are willing to have a conversation. They've got to know who you are and fundamentally understand who you are before they'll trust you. So marketing's job, I would argue, in today's world is, and I don't know if this is going the right direction, but I would argue is to get people to know who we are
Yep.
and get them to start trusting us that we have the products, the knowledge, the competency, the ethics, all of the other aspects that are needed in place today in order for somebody to feel comfortable before they'll even make a purchase. Google wrote a book called The Zero Moment of Truth 10 years ago, perhaps now, and that talked about SEO marketing, about how you don't walk into a car dealership anymore and ask the car dealer to sell you a car. You walk in to choose the color leather you want on the seats and to check you've got the right spec set up for the system. You've already done all of the selection process of which brand, of which car model, of probably which engine, of the colors you like, and you're simply going into the dealer to confirm this. So their marketing job has changed from getting you into the dealership to making sure you have enough knowledge to be able to choose 80% of the right car, so that when you walk into the dealership, you're already sold. There's no sales job needed in the dealership in that situation. You're going to buy a car. It's just a matter of what color leather there is on the seats. So the salesperson's job in that situation has shifted from selling you a car to selling you the 17,000 insurances that they've got that they can possibly add on to a new car. And sell you finance at 10%.
Yeah.
So their job has shifted as sales because marketing in that world has done what they used to do.
Yes.
But that's where it's joined up. If it's not joined up, that person never goes into the dealership. Because if marketing don't do the job of creating trust well enough, then nobody walks in, doesn't nobody trusts them, so they don't walk into the dealership and sales can't buy. Because sales don't call randomly. They wait for, and if you stay with the car example, they wait for somebody to walk into the dealership in order to sell to them. So sales
Yes.
job there is to take a marketing interest and to turn it into a sale. And if marketing don't do a good enough job, either nobody walks into the dealership or the wrong people walk into the dealership.
Yeah. The for instance that I always give is McDonald's. Like McDonald's never called anyone and said, "Look, we need you to come in and do some negotiation
No.
training or some objection handling training," because everyone gets to the front of the queue. They know what they're going to buy. They know what they're going to get. They know what they're going to pay, and they just buy it. So I think you're right, but I do have an issue. I've got so many issues, Simon. I can't begin to tell you, but I do have an issue with this 5 points of interaction, 25 points of interaction, 35, whatever it is. There's always a number, but that must vary so much dependent on like the value of what you're selling, or like if it's a very low ticket item, then you don't need 35 interactions. You don't need this huge amount of trust. So maybe as the value of the product or service goes up, you need more of these interaction points. But the other big factor in that has to be the quality of those interaction points. So if you are saying, okay, they saw an Instagram post, but maybe they didn't slow down, and so maybe the better interaction was when they liked the Instagram post. That for me is obviously very low quality. But when I was selling, for example, I worked in some boiler room environments, and we were a smash and grab operation. We
Yeah.
would, there would be pitch. First interaction, they would never have heard of us. No one, our marketing were useless, so they'd never heard of us. So we'd
Okay.
cold call them and pitch. The second interaction was essentially contract. Um,
Hmm.
did you get the contract? Have you signed it? Are you getting it back? The third interaction was payment, and then we would never speak to them again. But these were high. I don't want to say high quality, high impact interactions. I used to work with a guy. I wonder if I can use his name. It was 20 years ago. He's probably still kicking around. His name was Moeen.
I
So
wouldn't.
we'll just say his first name. His name was Moeen. And he basically, so it's about getting people's attention. Like if you're on the phone, it's about getting people's attention. So the first thing he would say to people, he was from Glasgow, and he would say, "The sky is green. The sky is green." And we'd be sitting there and we'd hear him say this 40 times a day: "The sky is green." And of course, what that served to do is get the person's attention. It's like, how on earth did this person get me on the phone? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, so, so, so I think that's really important. Is you have to wrench people out of their reality to get them to pay attention to you. Like you really have to do that, and I would say you have to do that more than ever now for two reasons: because people are so stimulated, all the time. There's not a second when we're not watching something or listening to something, and they are so much less available than they were previously. So now I'm in the habit, before I call somebody on WhatsApp, I will message them, like this is my friends and family, and say,
Mm.
"Are you available for a chat?" Like
I
I've
know, it's
cold
weird.
called thousands of people, like managing directors of household names. Like I did that for 10 years, and now I don't cold call my dad without messaging him to say, "You around for
Without
a
checking
chat?"
there. Yeah, I know. I do
Yeah.
the same.
So I
Yeah.
think those are my issues with that. Those ideas of there have to be this amount of touch points. I would say that there just needs to be really effective touch points. Um, is what I would say. But getting those is much less likely than it was 20 years ago when people's phones would ring and they would answer them.
I think my point isn't that it's 6 to 20. My point is that we've increased the number of times we need to engage with somebody in order
Yes.
to get them to sell. But coming back to the six is always a good number. because most salespeople try somebody 3 times and give up. And I think as long as the number is greater than 3, it's that reminder to the salesperson that they need to try at least 6 times, or they need to do a lot more effort on a prospect. And you'll know from when you were hitting the numbers, it's going beyond what other people are doing. Pattern interrupt, the sky is green. I love that. I
Yes.
absolutely love that because you know as well as I do why it works, because it completely interrupts somebody's pattern. It throws their brain into confusion, and at that point in confusion, you then have an opportunity to grab their attention. And if you haven't interrupted their pattern, you can't get their attention because they're still looking at their phone, they're still doing this, they're still watching that YouTube video and everything else. But
And
you've interrupted their pattern.
he was screaming at them in this Glaswegian accent. And I've only given you about 60% of this because I'm going to give you his whole
No.
name because maybe he won't mind. Maybe he's still doing it somewhere. I don't know. His name was Moeen Yassin. So literally, they would answer the phone and he would say, "My name is Moeen Yassin. The sky is green." And it was
Brilliant.
40 times a day and he was going through. And he was winning the champagne every week, but never drinking
Yeah.
it because he was Muslim. It was insane. But
It,
so this is my major issue with this, is that it's encouraging two things that I don't think should be encouraged. So the first one is this persistence thing. So, like, we're told all the time, there's this trope. Colonel Sanders got rejected 72 times before he found someone to sell his chicken. I saw Mark Zuckerberg saying, "Oh, Facebook wasn't the first thing I built. I built like an education thing. I built this or that." He did it while he was in university. Do you know what I mean? He didn't do anything else. He didn't persist at anything. So this idea of persistence, which I think is really dangerous, and this idea coupled with this idea of low quality interaction, where too many people salespeople don't actually show up when they've got the opportunity. They'll say, "Okay, I'll send you a proposal," and then it'll be goodbye, rather than, "If you can demonstrate to me that you're going to get value out of seeing this proposal, then I'm going to send it to you." Do you know what I mean? Or otherwise, do you understand what I mean?
yeah, what you're talking about is quality, and
Yes,
I'm talking about quantity, and I'm in violent agreement with you
good.
that you've got to have quality engagement, and you've got to move the person on. If you can't
Yes,
move somebody on in a call, then you're wasting your time. I mean, if they say, "I'm in the middle of a meeting, call me back in a week," that's fine.
not
You've moved things on. It is what it is. If you can either persist and really piss them off, and that's life. You might as well not call them back ever, or you can try them again in a week. And if they move you back again, then well, they probably weren't interested.
yes. You see, I would
So,
say it's
but
not fine if they say, "I'm in a meeting, call me back in a week." Then you see the moving on that I want to do is qualification, and I want to qualify
yeah,
them in or out. Are they worthy of more of my attention or not?
correct.
So that's what I'm looking for. So if someone were to say to me, I'm Johnny Bigby's because I haven't done this for 20 years. But what I would say to somebody who's doing this as a job, if somebody says to you, "I'm on a meeting, call me back in a week," I would say absolutely not. That's not fine. It's like, I will call you back in a week if there is a good reason for me to call you back. What is the reason that you want me to call you back? And basically, not in a week. I will call you at a scheduled time because I don't want to call you next week for you to be in another meeting. Do you know what I mean? So there's opportunity in that to qualify. And I think, that is the job of a salesperson, essentially, is to be qualifying all the time. And exactly like you say, moving things on. Like, I'm going to
Yeah,
call you back at 10 o'clock next Tuesday because you've told me that there's value in that happening, or ideally you will have expressed more of an interest in actually having that conversation. So that's what we used to do when we were selling advertising, is like, 100%. I'm not here to waste your time. Please don't waste my time. If you're not interested in this, you let me know right now because
mm,
I've got another 100 people that I could be speaking to right now. And that's,
yeah, I agree. And with and coming back to the systems, we're feeding another 20, another 50, another 100 potential interests into the system. Maybe it's 1,000, whatever. But there's more people always coming into the system from the market. How qualified they are, we can debate. But if sales aren't taking some out and discarding them and disqualifying them, then that system is just going to grow and grow and become unstable. And you can't have that situation. You've got to
Yes.
have leads coming in and going out. So sales' job is not to qualify, it's to qualify and disqualify.
Yeah.
So
Well,
they've got to qualify
exactly.
out, which
Okay.
is what you're saying, I know, but
I'm
my point
violently
is,
agreeing with you also. I'm
yeah,
saying qualifying in or out. That's fine.
yeah,
I've got this presentation called The Most Powerful Close in the World Ever, which is the word no. Just start telling
mm,
people, no, I'm not going to invest any more time in you having this thing if you're not doing what you need to do. Um, that's good. Okay, so good. So does this address the issue of, you see, marketing are now going to be upset because they're saying, well, these guys are just discarding the work that we've done. So
mm,
marketing are going to be
they are.
upset, and sales are going to be upset because they're saying, well, we can't work with these. You see, this is the gap, I
Okay, so
think.
let me put this into context for you. This is an actual real world situation. So we ran an email marketing campaign for one of our clients back in 2009. God, yes, that many years ago.
Right.
And this was when we were just able to track click-through rates and open rates. So we pulled together a really nice campaign, 3 email series, and we then took those campaigns, sent them out, a highly reputable supplier, and we got people to click through onto the website. So we then took those click-throughs and we said the only people who are going to click through on this are people who have an interest. And there were no bots, remember, to click the links. So the people themselves had to have clicked the links. So, and we were getting 1-2% click through. So we took 300-400 names into this client on a spreadsheet and said, there you go. Those people, in amongst those people, there's a bunch of people there who are wanting to buy from you. The reason we think they're wanting to buy from you is because they've expressed interest by clicking on this link that said, if you want to know more about blah, 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 follow this link. Here's how you can earn more money. Here's how you can do this. Follow this link. Those sorts of highly qualified links, which you're not just going to click on because there might be a furry cat video jumping around. There's a business reason for doing so, and this was B2B, so it had to be a business engagement. So we took those marketing qualified leads to our client, and the client broke them up, gave them to his 5 salespeople, and said, "You guys call that lot. Go and get them. Go and turn them into customers." And I phoned the sales director back a week later. Said, "How did it go?" He says, "They're crap, absolutely crap. Didn't sell anything to any of them." And that was the challenge of a marketing qualified lead being passed straight to sales, because they'd expressed a bit of interest. They said, "I might be interested." And then they've got a bloody salesperson on the phone saying, "I hear you want to buy from us," which was essentially what they were saying. And they were saying, "No, no, no, absolutely no interest in buying. I just wanted to understand what you did so that when I'm ready to buy, I can buy from you." So that was our first attempt at getting marketing qualified leads into a salesperson's hand and having it fail. So we went back to the drawing board at this stage and said, okay, so we need and hence where Mind the Gap came in. We need a process of taking marketing qualified leads and making them ready for a sales team. So we then went and recruited our own telemarketing team. So our service transmuted from email marketing to, we're going to do your email marketing. We're going to then phone up in your name and qualify these leads. And the only people who are going to come through to you are people who want to have a conversation with a salesperson. And that worked really well for us for the next 6 years.
Okay,
So we
because
crossed
there's
the
more.
gap. We
Yes.
crossed them. We crossed the gap because the people we're doing the marketing for don't have somebody internally to take those marketing qualified leads and warm them up and qualify them. They've got salespeople, and they want they want raw meat to throw at the salespeople. They want people they can close. And 90% of those people are saying, oh, hang on a sec, hang on. I don't want to be closed now. I was just interested because 6 months' time, I know that I've got this project coming along that might be useful for you. And the salesman say, well, that's no good to me. I've got my target to do this month. I'm not going to make a note to call you back in 6 months. I haven't got a system to call you back in 6 months.
Yes.
I just want people to sell to now. And so what we were able to do is we were able to take that, I'm interested in 6 months, and say, okay, how interested are you in 6 months? Oh yeah, this project's going to happen. It's going to look like this. So we'll note all that down in our fabulous CRM system that we've built, and we'll then call them back in 4 months' time and say, when we spoke 4 months ago, yes, still interested. And then in a month's time, yes, still interested. And then you put that lead through, and then we get paid the big bucks, because all we're doing is we're passing well-qualified leads through to the customer. And we might only pass 10 through, but every single one of them was a proper lead that they could actually go and buy, or go and sell
Yes.
to, and they would buy from. And that's the example of fixing this gap, this difference between sales and marketing, or this marketing to sales gap.
So you actually had to put people in the gap to and that makes perfect sense to me, because you can't, there's no such thing as a marketing qualified lead, because like if you take like the most traditional definition of marketing, it's one to many. Okay. And
Yeah,
sales then is the one to one. And you can't qualify somebody without talking to them. You know, you can't. You can't. I mean, so we're talking B2B. You can't.
yeah,
Without saying like. So for me, a lead. So I've done a video on this. What constitutes a lead? It
yeah,
depends on where you are in your business. So a lead goes from somebody liking your Instagram post, they've expressed some interest in what it is that you're doing, all the way through to somebody dragging themselves 60 miles across a desert to find you selling lemonade at 10 cents a cup. Do you know what I mean? That's
yeah.
a qualified lead. They're going to buy
That's well
that
qualified. Yeah,
as long as they've got the 10 cents. So it's all happening on a scale. Now, if your marketing are doing really well and you have lots of leads, then you can start to be fussier about actually what constitutes a good lead. If your marketing are doing poorly, then so it's that journey. It's the journey from I'm interested to know more to actually this is really going to help me out in my life and I want to buy this thing. And somebody has to take them on that journey. So it sounds to me eminently sensible. It's not until somebody has a conversation with them, because that's not a bad lead. If they're saying, "Look, I want to know about this because I want to know where to buy it when I'm ready to buy it," that's a
yeah.
perfectly good lead. And if a salesperson can't take a notepad out of their pocket and write down, call these people in 6 months from now, where are we? August, then, poor power to them, really. They're bad
Well,
salespeople.
that's why they
Um,
need a sales system, but that's another story.
yes, 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 yes. So, yeah. So for me, no such thing. Like there's a lead. It's not qualified if it comes from marketing, unless they've had telemarketing, phone them up, have a conversation, say, what is your interest? How is your interest? When is your interest? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you qualify. But for me, that's the job of salespeople. Like salespeople should be able to do that work. And
Yeah.
and the reason they weren't is because they were a client and they got to not do the work and say, no, this is shit that they're giving us. Do you know what I mean? So they have the opportunity to do that.
But let's throw that back then, because we had that conversation about, I don't even phone my dad without WhatsApping him first.
Yeah.
So let's translate that into the business world today. People are still having to work from home. They're still socially distancing. Office numbers don't work. You need somebody's mobile to be able to get hold of them. Blah 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 blah. It's near impossible to run a cost-effective telemarketing outfit, to take those marketing leads and to qualify them over the phone into sales qualified leads without having prior engagement with the person. So, having their WhatsApp, having their mobile, and having that level of detail about that person, and then being willing to answer the phone and talk to you at all.
Yeah.
So that process that you've described is absolutely right. That you need to talk to somebody to qualify them as a sales lead in order to put them to the sales funnel, in order for the salespeople to engage with them, to sell to them, for them to buy from the sales team. But
Yes.
you can't have that telephone conversation with them to qualify them because you can't get hold of them anymore.
Okay, I'm not saying it's easy.
No,
I'm not.
I'm not
I'm not.
saying it's
I'm not
I'm
saying
not
it's.
saying it's impossible, but but
But
if you
that's
want
why.
but if you want to put that together, if you want to put that together as a proposal for a client to do that work, it's not cost effective for the client to pay you to do that.
Okay, well, let's park that idea for a second. Like the way we fill this gap is either we put people in the middle, which
Yep.
was your solution. That would be 100% effective. So they know that they're going on the phone to grow this interest that has been expressed. I want to learn more, and they want to grow that or qualify it out, or
Yeah.
disqualify it. So that's one way. The other way to close this gap is by getting a bit more from marketing and a bit more from sales to close that gap. So what marketing need to do in 2022 is they need somebody to get a click on a link that says, I'm interested enough to speak to somebody about, I want to know more about this. Please get someone to call me, and then take them to a form that gives them their mobile telephone number, because
Yes.
as well as I do, by the time somebody is giving you their mobile telephone number, they're genuinely interested. So that
Yep.
very act will start to qualify people out, and that then starts to look like a lead that is workable. So then I would give that to the salesperson, and let the salesperson know specifically this person's interested in more information and they've given us their mobile telephone number. That's where you're starting from. Because what
Yep.
marketing is doing and what salespeople are doing is taking these people on a journey from the wilderness to they are now a customer. And it's just about how it's a relay race. When they pass the baton, what is the quality of that baton, and do they know how to receive it?
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a horrible analogy. We used to talk about dead cat bounce.
Right.
And
It's
so
not very
marketing,
appropriate, is it, with what's going on with Kurt Zuma?
it probably isn't actually.
No.
No, no, let's leave
What?
that one then.
But that idea that something that's lifeless could actually recover. You could tell us the story without using those three words.
Yeah, we'll leave it for another day. I'll find another analogy.
Okay, good. So let's
Um,
talk about this. It's not profitable or not financially viable to do that extra piece of work. This is another bugbear of mine. We're allowed to talk about bugbears. I think we are. Um,
I think that's
where
okay.
nobody factors in the cost of sale, or maybe
No.
they do and I'm just out of touch. But I've always had to explain to my customers, you're in the business of buying customers essentially, and you need to
Mm.
work out what that cost of sale is, and you need to factor that into your pricing. So we know that the top 500 companies in the world spend around 12% on marketing, and they spend around 20% on sales. So literally a third of your turnover is your cost of sale. So
Hmm.
that for me takes that little bit of resistance out of it. If people are saying it's not financially viable, then it's not financially viable for you to sell this thing. You're not in business anymore. Is that harsh?
Agreed.
Yes.
No, no, and I agree with you entirely. But if you, by taking large companies and taking percentages, what that does is that distorts the situation for the smaller business. And we tend to work with smaller to medium sized businesses where they don't necessarily have the scale to be able to invest in a team of 10 salespeople and a team of marketing and so on. So they don't, because they don't have the scale, they're paying over the odds for each interaction because they can't generate a volume to get the volume discount they need in order to make the whole thing stack up. So their percentages would look very different and it might be 40% is sales and 10% is marketing. So half the cost of the product is cost of sales, for example,
Yes.
because they don't have the scale of operation that would enable them to get cost efficiencies. So I think I think part of the answer is, as you said, is for marketing to get smarter about what they're doing and get aligned. And this is the answer, is to get aligned with the salespeople's objectives as well as their own objectives. So if they measure themselves on actually collecting mobile phone numbers on a form rather than on click-throughs on a page, for example, then that would change substantially the motivation, the desires, the budget allocations of the marketing department. Because if their whole marketing effort, and let's take a silly example. Let's say you shift the marketing effort away from Instagram likes, Facebook likes, and retweets, and if you shifted it all to obtaining somebody's mobile number on this form, then the whole of the marketing effort would change dramatically. It would become aligned to creating an environment where somebody felt comfortable enough to be able to give their mobile number on a form, not where they felt comfortable liking a post on Instagram. And I know I'm using silly examples, but for me, it's about aligning objectives at a strategic level rather than doing something at a tactical level to solve a problem and to put a finger in a dam. So
Yes.
if you've got marketing aligned to sales objectives, and you've then got sales aligned to marketing objectives. So if sales know that the whole point of marketing is to get that mobile number for that person to present to them, then if they know that and they're bought into that, and they know that if they've got that detail, then they can convert those people. The second that form lands in their automated system, they'll be on it. I know,
Yes.
because I've created those systems for clients. And the salespeople, the first thing they do in the morning, I build a dashboard for them. Top left-hand corner are the new leads to call this morning. And the job of their salesperson is to call through that list. And then there's all the other stuff. There's the follow-up, the opportunities, blah, 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 blah. But if you put it top left and you put the visibility of who's still got some to call on the manager's dashboard, and they start to get good business from that, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sales know that they're great. Anything that appears top left is great. Marketing know that their job is to put everything top left. As soon as top left appears, sales call it, turn it into a customer, feedback to marketing that they've got another customer. Marketing, instead of having some ethereal objective, can actually start measuring their impact in actual pound notes in terms of sales converted. So marketing can then say, look how clever we are. We're generating 37 mobile numbers a day. Sales are turning 10 of those a day into business. Each of those sales is worth £12,000. We're generating £120,000 worth of business a day from our marketing budget. Aren't we clever?
Yes.
That whole closed loop suddenly becomes possible when you align the objectives of marketing with the desires of sales, with the needs of the company. But
Yes.
that doesn't happen. That doesn't
It
happen for
it
some
doesn't
reason.
happen. But it's even simpler than that, because it's about aligning the marketing objectives with the sales objectives, which is with the business's objectives, which is
Yeah.
just to be profitable. And I think a large part of the trouble of marketing and sales is that there's too much opportunity not to show up, like just to miss the point. So like you're saying, it's silly. It's not silly. This is what marketing teams are doing. This is what Manchester United Football Club are doing. Is they're failing on the football pitch, but they're saying, "Oh, but we've got all these new followers on Instagram and Twitter and all of this stuff." And it's like, you're missing the point. You're not showing up. You're missing the point on purpose by counting something that's really easy to do and not doing the actual thing that you should be doing, which is winning football matches. So I'm really pleased with that analogy that I just made up right now.
Yeah,
But and
I would actually argue what their objective is. I don't think their objective is to win football matches. I think their objective is to make money through shirt sales and sponsorship, because that's
yeah,
their
but
business objective. But football is the means of doing it. Doesn't matter if they win or lose, as long as they carry on selling shirts, it doesn't matter.
it matters if they win or lose. 100%. They will be more popular. They will sell more shirts. They will make more money if they win more football matches. Like, there is,
Yeah,
I mean,
in principle, yeah.
yeah, no. I mean, look where Manchester City have come from nowhere to be one of the most popular football clubs in the world because they are consistently winning football matches and titles and all of this stuff. So, anyway, let's not get bogged down in
Yeah,
that. There is
let's not go there.
there is too much opportunity in sales and marketing to not show up or to miss the point. So marketing are too focused on like the awareness stuff, like that can happen,
Yeah,
that's fine, that should be happening. You should be aware of that. But your objective is the profitability, and the
yeah.
sales might be like their opportunity is to say, oh, well, I touched this guy 20 times, so I'm on my way to 25 times, so maybe it will happen. But in none of those interactions did you get their attention, or did you actually qualify them to establish actually if this is likely to end up being a sale and a profitable sale or not? Because the danger there is you're paying that person to have those 25 really poor interactions. So that's the thing. The thing about the 30% cost of sale is I've never managed to convince anyone to spend more than 5%, and I've achieved success for those people, and that's fine. So it doesn't have to be 30%. But I think that idea that your sales and marketing, that you are in the business of buying customers, has to be established, because people don't even understand that, I think.
We see it's interesting because if you take a one-man business, that one-man business makes very, very rational decisions about sales and marketing. When it grows to a 2, 3, 4-man business, and you've got different people starting to do different functions, they still make very rational decisions because everybody is aligned on the desire to make money for the business. So maybe the part-time marketing person involved in the business, they're very aligned to the sales objectives because it's highly visible. The salesperson, who might be full-time by this stage, but is still probably doing a bunch of delivery, packing in the warehouse, whatever, they're very, very aligned to making money for the business as well. And so they're being really effective on their calls. When that 4-person business goes to a 50-person business, are they still as aligned? Is it because the people in the business, when they no longer have a share in the business, a no longer feel that their own personal self-worth is aligned to the success of the business, that they're just there for a job? Maybe it's at that point that this unalignment, malalignment,
Misalignment.
disalignment, misalignment, that's the word,
Yes.
thank you. That misalignment comes in because at some point in a company's growth, they become misaligned. They stop being entrepreneurial, they stop being totally focused on achieving what they want to achieve and become a company that has other objectives and different strategies. And some carry on beautifully, and others get lost and lose alignment. And I don't know, I mean, we can look at the difference, but I think some of the ones I've seen who manage to stay aligned as they grow have got very good systems. And I would say that, being a systems person, but I've also seen a lot who are not aligned who have poor systems. So I'm not sure if that's a causation or a correlation. It's one or the other.
Yeah.
But if you play with it for a moment and say it's possibly a causation, then maybe part of the answer here is, as a company grows, is to invest not in more sales and more marketing, but invest in really solid systems that allow sales and marketing to be successful between them. And so you've then got a very, very strong backbone for the business, so the business can grow and recruit more people and slot those people into positions on the system, with the systems being able to cope and serve the people and hold the people to account. You know, if a salesperson calls 20 times and doesn't update the system each time to say, I've moved them from this stage to this stage, there needs to be consequences to that salesperson. That manager needs to be able to see that that salesperson is not moving people along, and therefore that they are going to be retrained. They're going to have a word with them. They're going to do what, there's an interaction there to change that salesperson's behavior so that they do start moving people along the funnel on each conversation. Because if they don't, then they're wasting their time, they're wasting the company's time, and it's again misalignment.
And they're wasting the company's reputation because they are just harassing people now.
Yeah,
So I'm remembering this one situation that I was in. We had a lead for 2 days. So basically, we had like a whole. This was like 20 years ago. So we had a whiteboard, and you would list your prospects on the whiteboard, and you could put somebody on the whiteboard if you had got hold of the decision maker, and then you
yes,
had 2 days. And then literally management would come and take them off the board if you hadn't closed them in 2 days, and then they are fair game again. And
absolutely.
that, I mean, it was insane. It wasn't, I mean, we were making it work. It wasn't sustainable sales or anything like that, but it was working. But this is what I mean also, and I think you're right. The answer has to be systems, not even to enable people, but to not allow people off the hook. You know, I think there's a lack of clarity in actually what marketing should be doing and what sales should be doing. And I think even sales managers, they're measuring the number of calls that people make in a day. Do you know what I mean? But they're not measuring the quality of those calls. What, there was something else that you said.
Well, let me throw in on that one, because this might give it to you. So if that salesperson is calling and not generating results, and you can track it and you can manage it, you can deal with it. But if you're not aware that that is going on, or if it's not working, then it's a problem. I'm sorry. I remember what you were going to say. I remember what I was going to say on when you said it. When your analogy of the whiteboard,
Yes.
2 days. The system that I built for one of our clients recently, when a lead comes in, they have an obligation to qualify it in or out within 48 hours.
Good.
And there's 7 different criteria, 7 different fields they have to fill out in those 48 hours. And they're free text, and they're up for review, and they are randomly checked very carefully, and they're held to account if it's not accurate. So they have to put the data in there. After those 2 days, if they haven't completed all 7 of those boxes and qualified the person, it gets reallocated to one of the other salespeople. It disappears off their radar. They can't see it. They can't touch it. They can't come back to it. It's gone.
Perfect. Good.
And it works because everybody does it, because they know that the best leads come in top left, as we said. If
Yes.
they don't qualify them in 2 days, top left, they're going to go to somebody else, and somebody else will get that deal.
Perfect.
Simple system. So you've got the measurement, you've got the incentive for sales to qualify it. You've got the stick to make sure that sales qualify it properly, because these 7 fields over here, if they're not filled out properly, and the only way to know if they're filled out properly is to have their manager review them. And so we present a really simple dashboard with those 7 questions, across a view, and the manager can just sit there and look at them and say, "That's bollocks," and we'll deal with that one.
Yes.
And they work through it. And so we've got the accountability. We've got so the salespeople aren't going to just put junk into the 7 there. We've got the process that says if there isn't anything in the 7 within 48 hours, it goes to the next person, which covers somebody off sick, covers somebody on COVID, and so on. So leads never get wasted in the business because somebody else always picks them up. That's a combination of responsibility, process, and systems coming together nicely.
And motivation. Yes.
Yeah.
But more importantly, what that is a demonstration of why do we even come to work every day? Like, why do I
Yeah.
come to work if I'm a marketing person? It's to do this thing. Why do I come if I'm a salesperson? It's this thing. So it's everybody understanding what their role is, and it's that correct intention being managed by the system. So this is my issue. I've got an issue with AI. I told you I've got lots of issues. Is
Yeah.
that people aren't building systems like this. What they're doing is they're building systems that reflect the reality. And the reality is marketing are hiding. So now they're going to build and generating this. So then they're going to build a system that generates what marketing are generating when they're hiding. Salespeople are lazy and hiding, and this is their output. So they're going to build a system that does that. So they're going to build systems that are poorly aligned, to use your word, because actually what they're doing is reflecting the reality, and the reality in 95% of instances isn't right, you know.
Mm.
So to come back to your point before, businesses that understand the value and invest in marketing are successful. It's the difference between successful businesses and unsuccessful businesses.
Mm.
If you're doing your sales and marketing, you've got money to pay for things to happen, to get fixed if they're broken. If sales and marketing aren't happening, you've got no money, you're not a business. So that's something I wanted to say. I feel like we've gone for an hour and 21 minutes and 5 seconds. I'm being precise because I know you're a systems guy. I feel like you might have answered the second question, which is, kind of who do you work with and how do you add value to their lives? Do you want to talk more about that?
I would actually, because it does carry on with the conversation. So our clients are B2B, business to business companies, and they're in that middle ground, the 20 to 300 area. And the reason that we tend to get involved is because they're on their second or third iteration of trying to get systems to work. So the first iteration might have been, you mentioned them earlier, an Infusionsoft or a HubSpot, something like that. But they tend to be point solutions.
Right.
So, and they've got their data and they've got their accounts data over here. They've got their stock control, their fulfillment system over here. You've got different systems, and excuse me, the problem that generates is you've got islands of data, and dog in the background. You've got islands of data that don't talk to each other, and the point at which we tend to get involved is where they want to streamline those islands. Somebody in the business has recognized that, as you said, sales is doing its own thing, marketing is doing its own thing. Those aren't aligned brilliantly with what the operations part of the business is doing, which means they're not getting the repeat business they should have done. Every business that we work with, their whole profitability, their success depends upon repeat business, not selling the first thing. So that needs a process. That needs a process to remember what we've sold them, who we've sold to, when we sold them, what we said we would do next, how we're going to do it next, and all of that whole sales and marketing interaction. And also what they engaged with. What do they like? What are they interested in? What I refer to as the fluffy side of marketing. How can we catch their interest in selling them other stuff? So what's my area of interest? My area of interest is joining up all of those disparate parts of the business into one system that just works for the business, that allows marketing to track the success of their leads in numeric terms, that allows marketing to know what sales really want from their leads, that allows sales to feed back to marketing what was a good lead, what was a bad lead, not in a negative way, but in a positive way. Hey, that was a really cracking one. These were poor, those were totally useless. You might find it useful to know that when we get on the phone to these people, we get this. When we get on the phone to these people, they say this. All of these people over here, they seem to be rugby fans, not football fans. Thought you might find that. And if you can use the systems to allow departments to share knowledge and insight that will help each other in a really simple way, then that takes away a lot of the barriers, because people on the ground floor, people who are actually doing the doing, have some ownership then of the systems, because you've developed the systems with the people. The people feel ownership. They want to get the data right in the systems, and they therefore use them properly rather than making the calls and then at the end of the day trying to update the system, which I'm sure we can all relate to.
Yes. Okay. The reason I was laughing when we were talking before about, we were kind of the way we were talking about is painting people into corners where they only have the opportunity to do it the way that the business wants it. It sounds a little bit dictatorial or a little bit fascistic. And I was thinking, I don't know if it's a misquote of Mao Zedong in a song. There's a song where the lyric is, Mao Zedong said, "This place will be a paradise when every supervisor has a submachine gun." But I think in this instance, um, this enables people to be successful.
Yes.
And so many sales and marketing people aren't successful. So I think in this instance, like that boiler room environment that I was working in, I mean, it was fascistic. It was properly, this is your job. Like the supervisor would be there deleting everyone could see deleting your prospects off the board. Like, you don't get, everyone knows who they are now, so immediately everyone's on the phone chasing those same people.
Yeah.
It was a dictatorship, but we were blowing it away. We were making a lot of money. Yeah, and it was really good fun to be successful. So I think that that for me takes care of that issue, that you manage people into a corner. As long as you're managing them into the corner where it's going to work, that's what it needs to be. And my issue with AI is that we're going to program in all of the injustices of the world, and what we're going to do is just move the authority away, and the government's going to be like, well, it's the computers that did it now, what can we do? So that's my concern about that, but let's not get into that.
No, let's not go
Your
there.
no. So your systems, are these custom built? Are they built particularly for each business? Is it like a component thing? Is like how much time and energy and maybe money goes into developing these systems?
Um, what we've found is that most most of the standard platforms, and I mentioned earlier Microsoft and Dynamics. I'm not a big fan of Microsoft as a business, but they have got a very solid infrastructure on which to build stuff. And what I'm not a fan of is custom systems. I don't think custom systems are helpful, because what they do is they either reflect where a company is at the moment to some degree of accuracy, or they reflect the desires of management to be somewhere different than where the company is. And in either case, you end up with a system that doesn't work. So my preference is to take a very standard system, take a very standard platform, and to configure it using the front end, not with code, but to configure it so that it's got the absolute minimum number of fields and buttons and decoration on it that is needed for a salesperson and a marketeer and a sales manager to do their job. So a contact form, it doesn't have a fax number on it. Why would it have a fax number on it? But every contact form you look at has got a fax number. Why would it have 7 phone numbers? You want their
Yes.
mobile number. You might want an office number. You want
Yeah.
one email address. You
Yes.
certainly want their LinkedIn profile. And you want to be able to click on it and open up. And you want a button next to the email address where it just pops up an email and it sends it. And it logs it in the system so you can see you've sent it. That's all basic common sense. But you build the least number of fields possible, and then you automate everything else. So if you need somebody to generate an opportunity, you don't close this down and then go to the opportunity and put all the details in. You hit one button that says create opportunity. And that then pops up an opportunity on the screen, and it's pre-populated with everything they need to. And if you've got a past history, you could even have a button that says pre-populate based on past history. And then it just pulls up whatever they ordered last. Those sorts of things are really easy to do, but nobody does them because people spend far too much time talking to the managers and directors in a business who fundamentally don't understand how the salespeople work and what their requirements are. But if you actually sit down with the salespeople and the marketeers and design the system with them, I know, and they're saying, no, if you put those fields over there on the right, that works better because then I've got the contact details on the left, I've got all the interaction I've had in the middle, and I've got their preferences on the right, and that just works so much better. So we lay it out like that. Then, funnily enough, the salesperson actually starts using the system and
Yes.
using the system properly. And that's kind of what we do. So what does it cost? Depends on the customer.
Right.
5, 10, 15,000 to build it, and whatever it costs to run it. They're not expensive, these things. For a small business, we can build and deploy this for $5,000. And that's theirs, and that's all the consultancy about what they want done. It's not costly because we're not writing code, we're configuring the user interface. And then they've got
Okay.
no legacy code to carry with them, and the next upgrade just happens.
And the other issue with custom built solutions is that you build this dependency where they're dependent on you forever now because you built this system for them. Nobody else knows how it works.
Well, it's a stake in the sand, isn't it? It's where we are now.
Yes.
It's not saying, I want to be over there. It's saying, this is where we are, and we're building a system to do this.
Yes.
And yes, you're right. They're totally reliant upon you forever, which I'd far prefer customers to want to deal with us than to feel the need to deal with us.
Okay, so the only other issue then, this might be a little bit challenging. There is a book called Something Optimism. I can't remember what it's called, but it's Something Optimism. It's like not planned optimism. It's like you work on your optimism. Anyway, there's a study in the middle of this thing, and you do this thing. And I read this book in 2006, and I did this study, and I tallied up my scores. And it was a scientific measure of optimism. It was very clear to point that out in the 3 chapters before the test. This is scientific, scientific, scientific. And so I am scientifically, or I was in 2006, scientifically, marvelously optimistic. It was my result. So
fabulous.
And I think I probably was. The reason I'm saying this to you is because there was a time in my life when I was stupidly optimistic about the power of systems. And there was a time in my life when I stopped being so optimistic about the power of systems. It feels to me like the systems never quite deliver as exciting a result as you are hoping for. And it seems to me also, like famously with databases, it's shit in, shit out. So you are 100% dependent on people, like you say, actually using the systems. So how do you... Because I'm sure I'm not the only person who's lost their optimism for the huge benefit of systems.
I think that most people are so jaded by the effectiveness or the ineffectiveness of the systems they've got that they just assume all systems are the same and they just don't work.
Yes.
I was busy trying. We were talking about gas earlier. I was busy trying to book the annual service for my boiler the other day, and I got the computer says, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I've got to refer you to a supervisor, sort of thing. They've got the override on the system to allow you to do, I think it was a Saturday appointment. Anyway, and that sort of excuse that the system doesn't allow, computer says no, etc., is prevalent and is almost expected. But from a business perspective, it doesn't have to be that way. It's how do you stop shit going into a system? Well, you make it worth the person who is entering the data's while to not put shit into the system.
Yes.
It's that simple. If that person has a vested interest in getting the data right, and if it's easier for them to put it right than wrong, let me give you a silly example. If you know a company's company number in the UK, you can type that company number in and it will pre-populate their address, their directors, and a whole load of stuff. That is easy to do with a very simple open API into Companies House. So you can put in one number, you find the company number, and all the address stuff is in there. The various you can select the contact, job done. you've got your contacts. All you've had to do is find that one number. You can then go in, you can update, say that's not quite right, but you can change it. But if you build a simple system like that for salespeople, they love it because they know they've just got to go and get the company number, and it saves them having to type in the whole address because nobody ever puts an address into a contact database. Do you
Yeah.
ever need an address? Well, it depends if you ever want to go and visit them or if you ever want to send them anything.
In the post.
In the post. Well, we work with a financial services business.
And they do, yeah.
Well, they do because they have to send a lot of stuff by post, and they need to get people's addresses in, and
Yes.
so having a simple postcode lookup, you've seen it on every form you go into,
Yeah.
but CRM systems don't have that. Why? It's stupid. So you can prevent a lot of the errors by building really simple systems and actually putting comments next to boxes or tooltips that say, in this box, you need to put a pound value, but don't put the pound symbol because it will reject it.
Yes.
And another one says, this is, interest areas. This is a multi-select box. You can tick as many as you like. If you do, that helps marketing what this person's interested in. A little pop-up, why not? Put a bit of commentary into this and explain why. If I think I remember seeing a clip about persuasion and excuses, and it was a bunch of people stood in a bank queue, and there's somebody came in at the back end, and they walked to the front and just walked to the front and said, "I need to go to the front," and they pushed in and went through, and everybody in the queue was all pissed off. Same person walks in and says to each person, I'm sorry, I've just parked outside. I need to go to the front. And they were saying, oh yeah, sure. They gave them an excuse to do it. The excuse was utter bollocks. I've parked outside. Well, everybody's parked outside. But
Yes.
by giving the person an excuse, it allowed them to do it. And I think part of that is what we're saying here. If you give people an excuse, if you allow people to have an excuse to do the right thing, to put the right data into a system, then yeah, you get a far greater chance of actually getting the right data in. And once you've got the right data in a system, then you can actually use it and rely upon it.
Yeah.
And that's your problem.
You see, that persuasion thing is need because, isn't it? It's like need because is a trigger statement. Like if you say to somebody, I need because, then you start getting away with stuff or you start getting people to do stuff for you. I'm a weirdo when it comes to databases because I open up a page on a database and I see it as my most important mission in life to complete every field on that screen. It's like when I was working databases, this was my mission. And no one ever knew, no one ever cared, but that was my mission. And when I had my own databases in my business, that's what I tried to get people to do. Okay, so I'm more encouraged that these systems might work. But I teach digital marketing is what I do now when I have to make money. And I tell people, this is data driven and it's like driving a car and, you can do whatever you want to do. But it's not because it's all system based and the systems aren't anywhere near as good. And I do let people know I'm going to tell you this is perfect and it's like driving a car, but it's not. But that's the danger, I think, with systems. I think you've renewed my optimism about systems, maybe.
It's possible. It is possible. In the
Yes.
same way as self-driving cars are now possible. But
Yes.
if you use the data in any company's database to drive a car, you'd be in a car wreck in 5 seconds flat.
100%. And I think the major thing that I'm taking away from this is like you've got to get the intent right. You've got to get the alignment right, which is
Yeah.
like when you're building the marketing part of the system, it's not about getting likes or comments or whatever it is on your social media posts. It's about generating actually workable leads. And when you're producing the sales part, it's not about how many times did they contact these people. It's about how effective are these contacts. And at the end of the day, it's about the profitability of the business. Cool. I'm excited about systems again now. How did you manage to do
Wow,
that?
convert. Love it.
Convert. I've got no need for one, but maybe I will get one. Yeah, my mission is slightly. My mission is.
Don't have one for the sake of it, for God's sake.
You know what? I really like things like HubSpot. Like when I've had
Yeah.
the opportunity to use that with clients, it's really, you know, I mean, it's huge, cumbersome. There's too much junk. They charge stupid amounts of money for the things you don't need and no money for the things that you really do need. And it's like, but then there'll be one on either side. There'll be one thing that they charge for that you'd quite. Anyway, I really do quite like that. Okay, good. Is there anything else you want to say about who you work with and how you add value to their lives?
No, it's just that I think the only thing I would say about it is, oh, in fact, one thing, yeah. I was trying to describe what we do to somebody the other day. And the way I said it is my goal is customer for life. And we try and run the business, we endeavor, we work very hard to run the business with our objective being that every single one of our customers stays a customer for the life of their business or until it's inappropriate for them to carry on working with us. And that means that if I have to take a call on a Saturday morning, if I have to work through a night, if I have to do something, if I have to do some unpaid work for somebody, then I do it not begrudgingly, but knowing that what I'm doing is I'm serving the company goal of a customer for life. And not everything I do for a customer is chargeable, but everything I do for a customer serves that need for us for them to want to carry on buying from us for the rest of their company life. That is my objective.
Good.
How you
That's
do
a
it?
That's a solid objective. That should be the objective because that comes back to, that's just entirely sensible marketing. It comes, or
Yeah.
which is so rare, but this idea of lifetime customer value that you're buying customers, the longer you keep customers, the better it is for your business. That's good. Question number 3 is a bit of a nonsense now because question number 3 is what is your recommendation for people who want to get better with their sales and marketing systems? And the answer clearly is they just need to call you.
Yeah, yeah. Let's call me systems. It costs them a lot less than they think to have a conversation and to start a process.
Good. Okay, good. And they can't do this on their own. They're going to need somebody to help them with this.
They could do it on their own. They've probably done it on their own in the past. That's why they're in the
Yes,
share.
yes. Good.
Sorry.
Okay, good. So, question number 4, recommended reading. What do you recommend people read?
I recommend people read widely.
Okay. Who
Now,
wrote Widely?
no. Thank you. I don't think there's a particular book recommendation that has made a really big difference to me. I think what has helped me most over my career is absorbing peripheral texts. So I mentioned Google's Zero Moment of Truth.
Yep.
That's brilliant, and you can look at all the entrepreneur books because there's always something really good in those to get out of sales and marketing. Warren's approach on attitude is great, but a lot of the NLP books on influence, the basics of NLP. I like books that give you basic knowledge rather than shortcuts to the top.
Good.
So they are the core fundamentals books, fundamentals on coaching. There was a book called Sales Persuasion many years ago. Another one called Selling the Wheel. I don't know, have you ever come across Selling the Wheel?
No.
It breaks down sales into, it's probably not available still, but it breaks down sales into really simple processes. And it tells a story about somebody inventing a round wheel and how to sell it and so on. Crossing the Chasm is a great one because there's a lot of fundamental theory in that about how to adjust your sales and marketing as you go through every stage of the of your growth cycle, and you can map that onto systems as well, so your systems can evolve. But no, I don't. I don't think any particular book has had a transformative impact on me. But I mean, I read a lot of books on coding and systems as well, and actually, funnily enough, some really good ones on photography.
Okay.
There's a great one that I would strongly recommend to you, Within the Frame. Utterly brilliant because, and this is a good example, what that does is it breaks down a photo and says, this is why I took this photo, this is how I took this photo, this is what I was trying to achieve, and this is the actual outcome I got. And that's kind of what I'm looking for from systems books. What is it you're trying to achieve? How did you get there? And what was the outcome? Did it work, and so on? What can I learn from it?
Yes.
Those are the sorts of things that help me the most.
Cool. Brilliant. So actually, there's 4 or 5 there. I will list those in the description below for people who are interested in those. Okay. So the last question is, who are you going to throw under the bus? Who might enjoy or at least endure to have a conversation like this with me?
That's actually really difficult because the people I would have pointed you towards would be Barnaby, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
Who you've already spoken to. Obviously Warren, because he threw me under the bus.
Yeah.
Um, do you know? I don't know. I'm going to have to think longer on that, and I apologise for not being able to throw it in here. But I think there's one of my clients. There's a guy there called Mark Woodruff, and I think he might be quite interesting because he has done a lot of these sorts of things in the past.
Okay.
He's done a lot of marketing stuff in the past, but he's now on the client side on systems, and that would be more of an extension on the systems implementation stuff that we're doing, and it would give you an insight into the sales and marketing process in a really interesting business.
Okay. That
And
sounds
that might be
exciting.
quite good. So Mark, I think Mark would be a really good call. Actually, I'm talking to him later on today, so I'll tell him I've thrown him under this particular bus.
Fantastic. And if you could sort out some sort of introduction the way that Warren did with us, that would be
No
really,
problem
really
at all.
cool.
No, I'll do that. He's I think he'd enjoy that as well.
Cool. And you're going to think long and hard about somebody else, another one.
Yeah, to be honest, somebody asked me that sort of question, my mind goes blank. I don't know why.
Okay.
It's one of those strange things. There are a couple of other people that I'm sure I'll will occur to me who would be good candidates for this, and
Yes.
I'll introduce you afterwards because there's two or three there.
Yeah. And the cool thing about this part of the process is it goes to places I couldn't possibly have conceived of. Do you know what I mean? I would
Yeah,
never have it, I would never, when I was thinking about this and who I wanted to talk to, it's like, no, I've got to get myself a marketing systems guy. Do you know what I mean? So this
yeah, yeah.
conversation would never have happened if it weren't for Warren. And you clearly now, because you're in that sphere, are going to maybe take me to other people in that sphere, which is going to be really interesting and useful. I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
I have as well, Martin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. What we'll do is we'll do the pretend goodbye now for anyone who's watching, and then I'll stop recording and we'll say goodbye like normal human beings. So thank you so much, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Yeah, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. Uh, I talk by thinking. I think by talking. So talking to somebody like yourself, who's a really good sounding board and asks tough questions, helps me get stuff clear in my mind as well. So thank you.